Okay, so we're going to continue our discussion about tropical disease, and this time we're going to go on to parasites, which are really cool. Parasites are organisms that live at the expense of other organisms. They're widely diverse, but they include a group of pathogens, including, sorry, I'm having trouble talking, protozoans, single-celled organisms more complex than bacteria, and helminths, which are multicellular organisms commonly referred to as worms. So basically, parasites occupy those two classes. Your friends, of course, can be parasites, but we don't talk about them. Maybe they could be worms. I don't know. Anyway, parasites represent a vast set of organisms that range in sizes from microscopic all the way up to tapeworms that can be as large as tens of feet. The environments in which parasites can live is also spectacularly diverse. Some parasites live within cells, in cells of all kinds, all throughout the body. Some parasites live outside of cells, most predominantly in the gut or on the skin, for example. So it's impossible to generalize about what a parasite is, except that it lives at the expense of other organisms. Many types of parasites undergo complex developmental transformations, which are quite fascinating. They involve growth within both mammalian and invertebrate hosts, as well as both sexual and asexual types of reproduction during the complicated life cycles. So we're going to see that some parasites are pretty simple. We defecate and they do their thing in the water, and then we ingest them and complete the cycle. And others are quite complex and involve multiple numbers of species to complete their life cycle. First one we're going to talk about is leishmaniasis, or leash for short. It's actually a group of diseases caused by infection with protozoa belonging to the genus Leishmania. There are about 20 different species that are transmitted to humans by the bite of infected sandflies, and we can see a picture right here. In the mammalian host, the parasite is found within macrophages, basically those large parts of your immune system that are responsible for consuming other organisms. These cells are usually responsible for destroying invading organisms, but leishmaniasis has hijacked it for its own ends, which makes it quite fascinating in itself. Symptoms range from self-healing skin ulcers to severe life-threatening disease. Cutaneous leishmaniasis is the most common, and usually just results in a bit of scarring, as you can see on this little girl here. In some individuals, the disease will spread to the mucous membranes of the nose and mouth, resulting in hideous destruction of the facial features, and this is actually the most palatable picture I could think of. There's much worse out there. The most dangerous form is visceral leishmaniasis, where parasites invade the internal organs. It is nearly almost is often fatal. I wouldn't say nearly always fatal, but often fatal. Treatment regimens are quite horrendous in their own way. So it's a sort of a bear of a disease. Leishmaniasis is found in tropical and subtropical areas. The World Health Organization reports 12 million infected individuals. It's mainly North African, Brazilian, some areas around Sudan is mostly where you find it. Basically places where you would find sandflies. Chagas disease. I think we mentioned Chagas disease briefly last time. Chagas disease is a trypanosomiasis, not to be confused with African trypanosomiasis. They're caused by different species of the same parasite in the same genus. It's transmitted to man by the blood-sucking triatomine bug, or the kissing bug. These are primarily found in Central and America and Mexico, and generally speaking, it's because of poor housing conditions like you see here. Bugs live in the cracks in the walls and then come out at night and bite you on your face and then defecate into the wound, and that's when you're infected with Chagas disease. In most cases, sort of resolve themselves, but are associated with fever. But after a time, it can go chronic, and then you can have cardiac outcomes. African trypanosomiasis, or what we call African sleeping sickness is transmitted by tsetse flies. Its initial symptoms include fever, headache, dizziness, all the things that happen and everything else. Parasites will eventually invade the nervous system, causing neurological and psychological problems, including hallucinations, delusions, and seizures. Don't get it, for sure. Yeah, it's going on the way down. 918 confirmed cases in 2019 as opposed to 25,000 back in the 1990s. Here's the life cycle of trypanosomiasis. Include humans and tsetse flies, and it also infects animals, and so is found mostly among people who herd cattle. Bilharzia, schistosomiasis, is a really cool disease because it actually replicates in freshwater snails, and then enters the skin when you're in the water near the snails, and then eventually makes its way up to other places in your body. Enters the skin, migrates to the blood vessels until finally establishing residence in the veins of the intestines or urinary bladder, depending on the parasite species. Adult male and female worms pair within the body, mate, and produce large numbers of eggs, most of which are excreted, but occasionally they can end up in places where they're not supposed to be and then cause severe disease. Estimated 200,000 people die every year from schistosomiasis. It's very common. And you can see the life cycle here. Person is urinating or defecating in the water. Eggs mature, infect the snail, then they mature again and penetrate the skin, and then the cycle is complete. Okay. Invades the liver, causes severe liver problems over the lifetime. Schisto is very common where I worked in Kenya, for sure. And I would always tell people, don't wade in the water. Just really don't do it. Filariasis. I can never pronounce this right. It's related to the dog heartworm, which everyone is familiar with. Pet owners are familiar with. You get it from mosquitoes. Worms mature in your body and basically get stuck and cause problems like what this man has, elephantitis of the lower extremities. Makes walking difficult, and then you spend a lifetime basically being dependent on others. River blindness. River blindness is a form of filariasis. It's known as onchocerciasis. River blindness caused by Onchocerca volvulus is transmitted by a group of insects known by black flies. Don't have them bite you, it hurts really bad, which breed in fast-moving rivers and streams. Some 90 million people are at risk in 36 countries. Most of the symptoms of the disease result from migration in larval stages into the skin and eyes. Reaction to these stages leads to intense itching as well as blindness. Hookworm happens here in the States as well. Hookworm infection usually causes mild diarrhea or cramps. However, heavy infections of these blood-sucking intestinal roundworms can cause profound anemia and subsequent developmental outcomes in children. Acquired by direct contact with the soil. When eggs passed in the feces reach the soil, they hatch and develop into infective larvae that can penetrate the skin. Children often play in the dirt and go barefoot. I remember when I was growing up in Mississippi, we were told, do not go outside barefoot because of hookworm, for sure. So definitely does occur in the southern parts of the United States. Ascaris, these are incredibly common intestinal worms found everywhere. Quite simple life cycle. You pick up the eggs and then they invade your gut, and then yes, you could defecate them out. Most common parasite in the world, really. Low levels of Ascaris are basically harmless. Extremely high levels of Ascaris can lead to intestinal blockage, abdominal pain. Yeah, so that's all I want to talk about with this. But again, I want you to think about, for example, we had hookworm. Why is this, a problem that happens in developed countries, but it's just so severe in developing countries, for sure. And also I want you to think about how the complexities of the life cycle of any of these pathogens can be exacerbated or by the living conditions of humans. What do we do that influences the behavior of these parasites? What do we do that makes problems worse? What do we do that makes problems better? And what specific parts of this life cycle are actionable to prevent disease? Thanks very much. Hope you all are doing good.